Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at someone you probably know from literature class, Heinrich von Kleist, but maybe not like this.
Right.
We're skipping the usual tragic poet angle. Instead, we're thinking of him as this incredibly sharp media analyst, almost like a systems manager back around 1800.
Yeah, using his writing plays, essays, journalism as these sort of simulation spaces.
Exactly. Testing ideas about communication, control, and, well, chaos.
And you really have to place him in his time, right? That period, maybe 1750 to 1830, was just pure upheaval.
The French Revolution, Napoleon turning everything upside down.
Totally. A real sense of contingency, like the ground shifting under everyone's feet, a loss of control. And Kleist saw how this affected everything, from private letters right up to big legal structures like the Napoleonic Code, the Code Civil.
So he was diagnosing this new kind of modern problem, how individuals fit into their media environment when it's suddenly so unreliable.
That's the core of it. He saw that the subject's position had fundamentally changed.
Okay, so our mission today is to dig into how Kleist's work doesn't just reflect this chaos, but actively tries to, well, configure it, maybe even steer communication.
Looking at his theories and how they actually show up in the drama.
Right, and let's start with where communication often goes wrong, which seems key to his early plays. These Boten and messenger dramas, the name kind of says it all.
It does. The whole conflict often kicks off because a message gets mangled or fails entirely.
And the messenger figure, the Bote, is central.
He is. And what's fascinating is how basic that figure is to the idea of the medial itself. The sources often point out, the messenger is their function. Their whole existence is just about carrying the message. Think the marathon runner.
Exhausted by the act of communicating.
Exactly. And Kleist shows us, right from the start, the drama that unfolds when that pure transmission just breaks down.
Like in Die Family Schroffenstein, that's a perfect example, isn't it?
Absolutely. The whole tragedy spins out from basically fake news. Rupert's stunt Peter is found dead, and suspicion immediately, falsely, lands on Sylvester's family.
And the leaders, the sovereigns, they can't just talk directly.
Nope. Communication is blocked. The system relies on reports, messengers, intermediaries, and it's just flawed. Information gets twisted.
So how does the truth eventually surface? It's not through a better messenger, is it?
No, and this is classic Kleist.
Wow.
It doesn't come through language or dialogue fixing things. It comes via hard, physical proof, material evidence.
You mean the finger?
The literal finger pointing,
I would-
Peter's severed little finger. And the crucial detail is who cut it off. Not the supposed enemy, but this completely other character, a witch, for unrelated reasons.
So this physical object, this trace or index.
Exactly. An index. It just cuts through all the verbal confusion, the unreliable stories. Its physical reality is undeniable.
That idea, indexicality, the physical trace trumping language, seems really important. Does it connect to Amphitryon, too? That play messes with identity itself through communication.
Oh, absolutely. Amphitryon takes it even further.
Yeah.
Identity gets completely scrambled. The play opens with the divine messenger, Mercury, disguised as the human messenger, Socius.
So right away, you don't know who's who.
And the point Kleist seems to be making is that identity isn't some deep, essential truth about you. It's not ontological.
It's
It's a communicative process. It's constructed through messages. Jupiter, the god, shows his power not just through force, but because he controls the information flow. He has the divine postal monopoly, you could say.
He decides who gets what message and therefore who is who.
He sets the addresses, assigns the identities. Power is controlling the communication network.
Okay, so messages fail, identity is unstable. Then we get to Der zerbrochene Krug, the broken jug. Here, Judge Adam actively tries to use language to obscure the truth, right?
He does. He tries to weave these elaborate stories,
Mhm.
create fictional culprits, doppelgangers. He even blames the devil at one point. It's all linguistic magic, trying to talk his way out of having broken the jug and, well, assaulted Eve.
But the investigation keeps circling back to something else.
To the physical evidence. Those undeniable indices on his own body. His clubfoot, the scratches on his face, the wig.
The material traces again.
Yeah. It's a constant battle in the play. Adam's slippery, persuasive speech versus the stubborn, material facts of the objects, the jug itself, and the wounds.
And you mentioned the Code Civil earlier. Does this connect?
Directly. It reflects that big shift happening then towards a modern legal system, influenced by Napoleon's Code, which Kleist actually considered publishing in German. A system demanding empirical, physical evidence, not just rhetoric or testimony.
That's fascinating. So Kleist dramatizes the failure of language and the power of the physical index, and that naturally leads him to think about systems beyond human control.
Exactly. He moves from showing communication breakdown to exploring how systems, mechanical, non-human ones actually work. This is where he starts sounding less like a playwright and more like an early cybernetics thinker.
Using metaphors from science and tech,
Straight from the physics of his day, his essay on the gradual formulation of thoughts while speaking is key here. Über die allmähliche Verfertigung der Gedanken beim Reden.
where he argues that ideas don't come from quiet reflection.
Right, not some planned-out internal process. Instead, knowledge creation is more like a sudden spark, an electric discharge. He actually calls it elektrisierte Hermeneutika, electrified interpretation.
So thoughts just appear while you're talking.
They crystallize suddenly in the act of speaking, in the interaction. The person you're talking to, maybe his sister who he mentions.
I'm not just listening.
No, they're a crucial part of the circuit. They act like a modulator, maybe an amplifier, or even a kind of brake. They interrupt the flow, channel the associations.
Forcing order out of chaos, as he puts it.
Exactly. And his famous line sums it up.
Denn nicht wir wissen, es ist allererst ein gewisser Zustand unserer, welcher weiß.
It's not we who know. It's a certain state of ours, the state of the system which knows.
The knowledge isn't in the person, it's in the interaction, the system state.
Precisely. Systemic emergence, not subjective control.
And he connected this to electricity directly, the Leyden jar. Yeah, the Claystian bottle analogy.
Yeah.
That jar stored electrical charge and then released it suddenly. He saw powerful speech, like Mirabeau's revolutionary speeches.
As that kind of discharge, a sudden thunderbolt.
Exactly. A non-linear buildup and release of energy.
This feels like a really anti-rationalist way of thinking, especially for the time, which brings us to the marionettes.
Who are Das Marionettentheater, yeah.
Yeah.
A truly radical text. He argues that perfect grace, perfect movement, isn't found in self-conscious humans, but in these mechanical puppets. The Geistlose, spiritless, or mindless marionettes.
Because they don't overthink it.
Because they operate purely based on mechanics, on the physics of the system. He describes their linked limbs as being like a double pendulum.
Okay, what's significant about a double pendulum?
Even back then, they knew it was a system governed by simple physical laws, but its movement was incredibly complex, chaotic, and fundamentally unpredictable, non-deterministic.
So the perfect dance, the perfect grace.
Emerges from this complex, self-regulating system, not from conscious planning or intention from a puppeteer's mind, but from the physics of the interconnected parts following their center of gravity.
Wow. That completely clashes with the dominant scientific idea of the time, like Laplace's demon.
Totally. Laplace imagined that if you knew the position and momentum of every particle, you could predict the future perfectly. Uncertainty for Laplace was just a lack of data.
But Kleist is saying,
Kleist is observing something different, a genuine, inherent complexity. Chaos, yes, but a chaos that can produce its own kind of order, one that maybe even perfect data couldn't fully predict using the math of his time.
okay, so Kleist works out these theories about systems and communication, first in drama, then in essays, and then he tries to apply them, to actually manage media.
Yeah, he shifts from simulation to, well, attempted manipulation. He becomes Kleist, the media entrepreneur, the publisher.
Trying to make money from it initially.
Definitely. He was very aware of the business side, complained bitterly that booksellers made huge profits while authors got little. His failed Phoenix bookstore project was an attempt to control the whole process, the mass media machine.
And then with the journal Der Phoebus, that wasn't just about making money.
No, that was about using communication strategically, almost aggressively. Published with Adam Miller, it used an aesthetic of antagonism,
Meaning?
meaning they deliberately set out to provoke, to irritate the established literary tastes, especially Weimar classicism. They'd publish radically different things side by side to sort of shock the system, break the old consensus, and create space for something new.
That sounds like putting his communication theories into practice. Provocation as a way to generate a reaction.
It absolutely is, and that escalates dramatically with his next project, Germania.
Which was purely political.
You know,
Anti-Napoleon.
Explicitly. Germania wasn't an arts journal. It was designed as a high-speed, high-impact mass medium for political mobilization. Forget profit. Kleist wanted to ignite resistance.
He wanted a huge reach, right?
Yeah, he famously wished he had a voice of bronze to broadcast patriotic messages from the mountains. He focused on rapid, fragmented distribution of texts, pamphlets, poems, calls to arms. Very modern journalistic tactics, in a way.
And the sources mention a particularly visceral propaganda idea he had. It sounds like that indexical logic again. but darker.
Extremely dark. The scenario involved taking the body of Hallie, who had been ravished, tearing it into pieces,
And sending the parts.
sending the pieces to the different German tribes, like the severed finger in Tropfenstein, but weaponized on a national scale, using a fragmented body part as undeniable material evidence to incite rage and forge a unified political body ready for war.
That's quite something. A semiotics of violence to engineer a mass response?
It's extreme, but it shows how far he was willing to take his ideas about communication's raw power.
And this idea of managing communication, even manipulating public opinion, shows up in his fiction too, like Michael Kohlhaas.
Kohlhaas is almost the blueprint for a modern media warrior, wouldn't you say? He's wronged by the system, and how does he fight back?
Through communication tools, letters, posters.
Exactly. Brand brief arson threats, mixed with manifestos and placate. Posters plastered everywhere. He uses them to wage psychological warfare, to control the narrative, to put public pressure on the authorities.
Forcing them to respond, to acknowledge his claims publicly.
He creates such a systemic disruption through media that they have to engage. This story perfectly captures that power of rumors, Gerüchte, and news spreading rapidly in that early modern infosphere.
So pulling it all together, we get this really unexpected picture of Kleist. He's not just the doomed poet.
No, he's the dramatist obsessed with communication failure, and he's the systems thinker wrestling with chaos and emergence, and he's the hands-on media manager trying to engineer social dynamics through journalism.
And running through all of it is this theme, the clash between complex, unpredictable forces, contingency, chaos, and the human drive for order, for control, for law.
Absolutely. And that fascination with chance, with contingency, it didn't stop with his writing.
Yeah.
It arguably extended right to his death.
How so?
Well, the chosen method, suicide by pistol, was notoriously unreliable back then, prone to failure. Something he'd actually mocked in a satirical story.
Where the plan goes wrong, but achieves a different desired outcome.
Right, where the shock of the gunshot intended for the lover accidentally kills the husband instead,
Yeah.
conveniently allowing the lover and widow to marry. So even his death was a kind of game of chance, embracing that unpredictability.
But amid that final chaos, there was still a strange kind of order, wasn't there, in his last letters?
That's the final Christian twist. Those letters weren't dramatic outpourings. They were highly practical, logistical. Detailed instructions about money, about forwarding mail, ensuring his companion was looked after.
He was managing the system even as he exited.
Precisely. Making sure the communication systems, the post, the financial arrangements kept working after the sender was gone. He engineered his end so it wouldn't be echolos without echo. He ensured the legal system, the news cycle, would have to react, continue the dynamic he set in motion.
It leaves you thinking. If Kleist saw truth emerging not from individual intention, but from this messy collision of signs, systems, and feedback loops, how much does our own world, soaked in instant digital messages, reflect his insights?
Especially when sources vanish or information gets distorted in the network, that fragility of communication, the struggle for control against contingency.
It really feels like the crisis of communication isn't just a historical problem he observed. It's a condition we're still living through, one he was maybe simulating for us 2 centuries ago.